Don't come for Christmas, my mother said with a smile. My brother laughed. We'll pretend you don't exist. I didn't say anything. I just did this. But when his girlfriend saw my picture at the party, she broke up with him on the spot. 5 days later, my mother was begging me. My name is Daniel, I'm 32, and I work as a surgeon in Chicago. Let's say my life is about saving hearts. But when it comes to my family, I always end up with mine broken. Not that I complain, but sometimes I feel like I'm more the one fixing problems than the one receiving affection. It was a Tuesday in November. I was in the hospital break room, sipping coffee that tasted like cardboard when my phone rang. It was my mom. I thought it'd be about Christmas, what to bring, if I'd arrive early to help with the tree. But no. Daniel, don't come for Christmas this year, she said in a strange tone, like she was smiling to avoid sounding cruel. I stayed silent. It's better this way, she added. In the background, I heard my brother, Issen, 29, laugh. We'll pretend you don't exist, he said, like it was a brilliant joke. Issen's always been the favorite, charismatic, effortlessly likable. Me? I'm the problem solver. When my dad, Robert, lost his job, I paid a mortgage for months. When my mom's car broke down, I covered the repair. I'm always there, but it's never enough. Why? I asked, trying not to sound angry. It's because of Sarah Issen's girlfriend, my mom said. She's special. She says your energy is heavy, and we don't want to make her uncomfortable. Sarah, I met her at my mom's birthday. Blonde, perfect smile, always talking about vibes and energies. Issen's crazy about her, and so are my parents because her family has money, lots of it. My energy is heavy? I repeated, almost laughing at how absurd it sounded. Don't take it personally, my mom said, as if that fixed everything. It's her first Christmas with us. We want her to feel good. And what about me? My voice came out harsher. I'm always there, Mom. I help with everything. I know, she said, but this year's different. Issen laughed again in the background. Relax, Dan, it's just one Christmas. I didn't say anything else. I hung up. I stared at the wall, holding the cold coffee. I want to call back, yell, but something in me was tired. Years of trying to be the perfect son, the brother who always helps. For what? To be kicked out over Issen's girlfriend's ridiculous ideas? That night, in my apartment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to beg for a seat at the table. I did something I never thought I'd do. I cut off the support I gave them. I called the bank and canceled the mortgage payments. I texted the mechanic, saying I wouldn't pay for my dad's car repair. Then I blocked their numbers. Mom, Dad, everyone. I didn't explain. I just left. The next few days were strange. I expected them to call, to say they'd messed up, but they didn't. And that made me realize something. I was always second, the one there to help but never to shine. Issen was a star. I was just the one paying the bills. I decided not to stay in my apartment watching Netflix, like Issen had suggested. I volunteered to work at the hospital on Christmas. If my family didn't want me, at least I could do something useful. The hospital was quiet. When colleagues asked why I wasn't going home, I said, I want others to spend time with their families. No one pressed. One morning, I got an email from an unknown number. It was Sarah. Daniel, I think there's a misunderstanding. Can we talk before Christmas? I didn't reply, not because I was furious, but because I didn't see the point. If she wanted to fix something, she could talk to Issen or my parents. I was already out. Christmas came fast. I was at the hospital, covering a shift, when I got a text from a colleague, Mike. It was a photo from the hospital's Christmas party that I'd gone to because he insisted. I'm not a party guy, but there was decent food and music. In the photo, I was with the surgical team, smiling, holding a drink. I didn't think much of it. What I didn't know was that photo would change everything. I found out what happened at my parents' house from my cousin Jack, who was at their Christmas dinner. He called a couple days later, still in shock. According to him, Sarah was there with Issen and my parents for the big family dinner. Everything was fine until Sarah looked at a friend's phone, a hospital co-worker. It was a party photo, and there I was. Sarah went quiet for a moment, Jack said, then asked, Who's the guy on the left? Daniel, the surgeon, her friend said. Sarah turned pale. Turns out I'd operated on her grandmother a year ago, a complex surgery where the odds were against us. Sarah's grandmother is alive because of me. Sarah knew, because her family wouldn't stop talking about the miracle doctor who saved her. This is the guy you say has heavy energy? Sarah said, her voice shaking. She turned to Issen and my parents. The one who saved my grandmother, and you kicked him out of Christmas because of me? Issen tried to calm her. It's not a big deal, Sarah. We just wanted you to feel comfortable. Comfortable? She shouted. You made me think he was a problem. You lied to me. My parents stammered excuses, saying they just wanted her to feel good, that it wasn't personal, but Sarah wasn't having it. She was furious. She grabbed her coat, looked at Issen, and said, We're done. I don't want to be with someone who treats their family like this. And she left mid-Christmas dinner, with the turkey still on the table. Jack said the house turned into chaos. Issen was in shock. My parents were yelling that it was all a misunderstanding, and the other guests didn't know where to look. The perfect Christmas they planned crumbled in minutes. Days later, Jack gave me more details. Issen tried to contact Sarah, but she blocked him. My parents, desperate, started blaming me. According to them, I'd ruined Christmas. How? I have no idea, but somehow it was my fault. I got a voicemail from my mom, from a new number since I'd blocked hers. Daniel, please, you have to fix this, she said, her voice trembling. Sarah won't talk to Issen, and her family is furious with us. Everything's a disaster. I didn't respond, not because I was angry, but because I was done. They dismissed me, chosen Sarah and her vibes over me. And now that it all fell apart, they expected me to swoop in and save the day, like always. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to fix anything. I didn't feel guilt, just relief. At the hospital, I stuck to my routine, surgeries, rounds, patients. My colleagues noticed I was calmer, though they didn't say anything. I started to realize I didn't need my family's approval to feel good. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living for me. I don't know exactly what happened with Issen after that Christmas. Jack said he tried to win Sarah back, but it didn't work. My parents had to deal with a mortgage and bills I no longer paid, which I guess hit them hard. What I had to know is that something in me changed. I didn't need them to love me. I didn't need to prove my worth. For the first time, I was at peace. But the story doesn't end there. My family wasn't to let things go, and what happened next forced me to confront them once and for all. I was at the hospital, finishing an 8-hour surgery, when Jack called again. It was New Year's, and I was exhausted, but his tone was the kind that doesn't let you hang up. Dude, you need to hear this, he said, almost laughing. Issen's going crazy, saying it's all your fault, that if you hadn't disappeared, Sarah wouldn't have gotten mad. My fault, I said, wiping sweat from my forehead. They kicked me out, Jack. Screw them. I know, he said, but they're desperate. Your mom called me 3 times asking if I know how to reach you, and your dad's losing a big deal because Sarah's parents are cutting him out. I think they're going to try something. I didn't give it much thought. I was tired of being the one who always fixes everything. But a part of me, the part that still remembered when my family was a circus, wondered if they'd ever say, "We're sorry." Spoiler, they didn't. Instead, things got more intense. A few days later, I was in my apartment, devouring cold pizza and checking emails, when someone knocked on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I looked through the peephole. It was Issen, looking like he wanted to break something. I opened the door, not because I wanted to talk, but because I knew he wouldn't leave until he said his piece. "What are you doing here?" I asked, crossing my arms. "You ruined everything," he said, barging in without an invitation. "Sarah won't talk to me. Her parents are screwing Dad over at work, and Mom won't stop crying. All because of your drama." My drama? I laughed, but it was pure anger. You and your vibes kicked me out of Christmas. I didn't do anything. "You could have talked to Sarah," he shouted, pointing at me like I was a villain. "She sent you an email. You could have cleared things up before everything blew up." "Cleared what up?" I said, stepping closer. "That your girlfriend thinks I'm a problem because I don't fit in her world of energies." or that you and my parents treat me like the second choice because she's got money? Issen went quiet, but his eyes were blazing. You always have to play the victim, he said finally. Everything we do is for the family, and you only think about yourself. That made me laugh, but it was the kind that hurts. For the family? When I paid the mortgage for 6 months. When I fixed Mom's car. When I was there every time you needed me. That wasn't for the family. He didn't answer, just clenched his fist and said, "You have to fix this, Daniel. Talk to Sarah. Make her come back to me." "No," I said, calm but firm. "I'm not fixing anything. You made this mess, you and your obsession with pleasing Sarah over everyone else." "You're selfish," he shouted, and I swear I thought he'd shove me, but he just stepped back, breathing like a bull. "If you don't fix this, I'll never forgive you." "Fine," I said, opening the door. "I don't need your forgiveness. Get out." He left, slamming the door so hard the walls shook. I stood there, heart racing, but I didn't feel bad. Saying no felt like shedding a weight I'd carried for years. The next blow came from my dad. He called from a new number since I'd blocked his. I was at the hospital, between rounds, when I answered without thinking. "Daniel, we need to talk," he said, with that fatherly tone that tries to sound tough but is on the verge of collapse. "What you've done is unacceptable." "What did I do, Dad?" I said, leaning against the wall. "Enlighten me, because I'm lost." "You stopped paying the mortgage," he said. "The bank called. We're behind. And your mom's car is still at the shop because you didn't pay for the repair. How could you do this to us?" "You kicked me out of Christmas," I said, staying calm. "You decided I wasn't part of the family. Why would I keep paying for your stuff?" "You're our son," he shouted. "You can't abandon us like this." "Abandon you?" I laughed, but it was a cutting laugh. "What did you do to me? You erased me for Issen's girlfriend. You made me feel like I was nothing." There was a silence. Then he said, quieter, "We just wanted Sarah to feel good. Her family is important for my work." "More important than me?" I asked. He didn't answer, and that was answer enough. "I'm not paying anything anymore," I said, "and don't call me until you're ready to apologize." I hung up and pocketed the phone. I felt a mix of fury and relief. For years, I'd carried their problems, think it would earn their respect. But I didn't want that respect anymore. It wasn't worth it. The climax came when my mom showed up at the hospital. It was a cold January afternoon, and I was leaving a surgery. A nurse told me a woman was waiting for me in the reception. When I got there, it was her red eyes in a coat that seemed to swallow her. "Daniel," she said, standing up, "please, we need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," I said, stopping a few steps away. "I've said what I needed to say." "I'm sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "We shouldn't have done that to you. We shouldn't have listened to Sarah. But please help us. Issen's devastated, and your father could lose his job. Just talk to Sarah. Tell her it was a misunderstanding." I looked at her, and for a second, I almost broke. This was my mom, the one who made me cookies as a kid, who hugged me after a bad day. But then I remember her voice on that call, telling me not to come for Christmas, and Issen's laugh in the background. "No," I said, "I'm not talking to Sarah. I'm not fixing the mess you created. You kicked me out, Mom. You made me feel like I was nothing, and now you want to save you? It doesn't work like that." "Your family," she said, raising her voice. A few people in the reception looked at us, but I didn't care. "Family," I said, stepping toward her. "Where was family when you left me out? When Issen laughed and you backed him? When Dad called me selfish for not paying your debts? That's not family. That's using me." She went quiet, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't want it to be like this," she whispered. "Well, it was," I said, "and now you have to live with it. I'm not your ATM or your savior anymore." I turned and walked away. I heard her call my name, but I didn't look back. My heart was pounding like a drum, but it wasn't sadness. It was strength. For the first time, I felt like I was taking control of my life. The next few days were wild. Jack kept me updated with the gossip. Issen kept trying to reach Sarah, but she gave no signs of life. My parents were dealing with the bank, trying to renegotiate the mortgage, and my dad was looking for another job because Sarah's contact had cut him off. Part of me felt pity, but a bigger part knew this was what they needed, to face the consequences. At the hospital, I focused on my work. My colleagues noticed I was different, more relaxed, though they didn't say anything. I started going out more with friends, enjoying my life without my family's shadow. One night, I went to a bar with Mike and ended up laughing until my stomach hurt over a dumb story he told. It was like rediscovering who I was without having to prove anything. But I knew this wasn't over. My family wasn't the type to give up easily, and I sensed I'd have to face them again soon. The next time, I wouldn't budge. I was going to tell them everything they'd ignored for years, and I wouldn't let them make me feel less ever again. I was ready to close this chapter, but not without making them see the truth. Christmas was already a bitter memory, and I, Daniel, was starting to taste the freedom of not carrying my family's drama. After confronting Issen, my dad, and my mom, I thought they'd leave me alone. Big mistake. My family doesn't know how to quit, and what happened next was the closure I needed, though not how I imagined. I was at the hospital, reviewing files, when Jack texted me, "Brace yourself. Your parents want a family meeting to fix everything. Issen's pushing this." I laughed to myself. Fix everything? After kicking me out of Christmas over Sarah's vibes, blaming me for her breakup, and expecting me to solve their problems? They wanted a meeting? This was going to be a circus. I didn't reply right away. I grabbed a coffee and thought about what I wanted. I wasn't looking for a fight, but I wasn't going to let them walk over me again. If they wanted to talk, it'd be on my terms. If not, they could keep their chaos. Days later, I got a long email from my mom, full we're family, and we need to be together. She said they'd organize a dinner at the house to rebuild ties. Issen and my dad would be there. It ended with, "Please, Daniel, don't shut us out." It stung, but not with nostalgia. It was a certainty that if I went, it wouldn't be to given but to end this once and for all. I replied briefly, "I'll be there, but don't expect me to fix anything. We talked for real." They didn't respond, but I didn't care. I knew what I was going to do. The dinner was on a Saturday. I arrived at my parents' house with a mix of nerves and resolve. Everything was the same. Dim Christmas lights on the porch, the smell of meatloaf, but it didn't feel warm. It was like stepping into a place that no longer belonged to me. My mom greeted me with a hug I dodged. "Daniel, thank you for coming," she said, her eyes glistening. "I didn't come to make peace," I said bluntly. "I came to say what I need to say." She went quiet. My dad, holding a beer in the living room, frowned. Issen was on the couch, looking like he wanted a bolt. Jack, my Aunt Clara, and a couple of uncles were there too, probably to soften the mood. But it just made it more theatrical. "Let's start," my dad said, pointing to the table. "We want to fix this as a family." I sat down, ignoring the food. "There's nothing to fix," I said, looking at them. "You kicked me out of Christmas for Issen's girlfriend. You treated me like I was nothing, and now, because it all fell apart, you expect me to fix it. It's not happening. That's not fair." Issen shouted, slamming the table. "We just wanted Sarah to be comfortable. It wasn't personal." "Not personal?" I said, raising my voice. "You said you pretend I didn't exist. You laughed. Mom backed you. Dad called me selfish for not paying your debts. And that's not personal." The silence was heavy. Aunt Clara cleared her throat awkwardly. Jack looked at me like, "Go for it." "Daniel, I'm sorry," my mom said, her voice trembling. "We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought it was for the best." "The best for who?" I said, laughing without humor. "For Issen. It's always been him, the favorite, the one who shines. I'm the one who pays the bills, who's there when you need me, but never the one who matters." "That's not true," my dad said, but without conviction. "No," I said, staring at him. "When did you thank me for saving the house? For fixing the car? Everything I do is invisible until I stop doing it. Then I'm the bad guy." Issen tried to speak, but I cut him off. "And you? Don't call me selfish. You thought you were king because Sarah had money, and you erased me without a second thought. Now that she's gone, it's my fault? Grow up, Issen." The tension was thick. My mom started crying. My dad turned red but said nothing. Jack gave me a pat on the shoulder, like, keep going. For years, I tried to earn your love, I said, looking at the table. I thought being the perfect son would make you see me. But no, I was always a second choice. I'm tired. I'm not going to keep being your ATM or your savior. It's over. So what? Issen said, his voice breaking. You just erase us like that. It's not easy, I said, but it's necessary. I'm not staying in a family that only wants me when it's convenient. If you ever treat me as an equal, we'll talk. Until then, don't count on me. I stood up, ignoring their stares. My mom tried to grab me, but I pulled away. Please, Daniel, she said, don't leave like this. I already left, I said, and walked out. The cold air cleared my head. I drove aimlessly, radio off. I wasn't sad or angry. I was at peace. For the first time, I felt like I didn't need to prove anything. Days later, Jack told me the dinner ended in chaos. My parents and Issen blamed each other, and Aunt Clara laid into them with some hard truths. Even my uncles were fed up with how they'd treated me. I wasn't surprised, but I didn't care anymore. At the hospital, things were going better. I got promoted to head of a surgical program. More work, but also more recognition. My colleagues congratulated me, and Mike dragged me to a bar to celebrate. We ended up singing terrible karaoke and laughing until we cried. I felt alive, like I was rediscovering who I was. One night, I saw an email from Sarah. Daniel, I'm sorry for what happened. I didn't know who you were until the photo. Thank you for my grandmother. If you want to grab a coffee, let me know. I smiled but didn't reply. I didn't need her validation. My worth didn't depend on anyone. Weeks later, Jack said my parents sold the house to pay debts. Issen moved to another state, trying to start over. My parents moved to a smaller town. They didn't reach out, and I didn't either. There was no resentment, just calm. One day, walking through a park, I saw a family at a picnic. The kids were running, the parents laughing. I thought of my childhood, but didn't linger. I kept walking, the sun on my face, a genuine smile. My family chose their path, and I chose mine. I found my peace, not in revenge, but in letting them go. And that, for me, was enough.